somebody sent me an article the other day about, I think it was in Birmingham, in which a whole bunch of people weren't paying their fines. They'd got fines for something. I don't know if it was this ULEZ scheme up there where the car's number plates had been registered, or you know, like the 15-minute cities, you'd gone through the barrier too many times, or whatever it was. A significant number of people had just decided, do you know what, you fined me and I'm not going to bother. And it was something like £70,000 worth of fines, or it was 70,000 people who had just decided they weren't going to do it. Basically, it was civil disobedience. They'd all just not obeyed, and all the fines, and in the end, the court could not cope. There were just too many. So what the council did was they just wiped it off. They just said, oh, can't be bothered. Let's wipe it off. We'll be more stringent next time and try and make sure that we get the money in some other way, quicker, no doubt. And I thought to myself, good on them. Good, not on the council, good on the people for a little bit of civil disobedience and saying this is an unjust law. There's no moral case for paying for or obeying an unjust law. But then I thought about obedience, isn't it? Because people are generally very obedient, aren't they? Do you remember the Daleks in Doctor Who? That programme that used to be quite good until it went a bit woke, and now it's, you know, a bit naff. The Daleks, they used to sort of travel about. They were, they were like glorified go-karts wrapped in industrial bubble wrap, really, with a sink plunger here and an egg whisk there, running around going, you must obey, you must obey, obey, obey. Kept saying you must obey. And of course the Doctor, being a bit of a rebel, he wasn't going to obey. Why should he? Because if he obeyed, he would be like enslaved, really. And yet in life we all seem to obey. We have these authority figures and we all sort of do whatever they damn well tell us. We go, oh, don't stand over here, don't stand over there. It's funny, just today, this morning, there was a flood in my road and I went outside to investigate, as you know. That's what you do, isn't it? And I went outside and there was this bloke and he came rushing over this particular area where I was walking. And he said, you can't stand on there, don't go on here. And I said, he said, you can't cross here. And I said, well, you've just crossed over. He said, no, but it's dangerous. And I said, well, you've just done it. He said, well, I'm insured. If anything happens to me, it's all right. But you're a member of the public. You're not allowed to do this. And I thought, well, why am I not allowed to do it and you're not allowed to do it? I could take the risk, can't I? But it was that thing, you know, I'm an authority, I've got a fluorescent jacket on and all of this, I'm telling you what you should do. And at first I felt, oh, hang on, why? And then I thought about this when I got in and I thought, yes, we are also obedient. It must start at school, mustn't it? I mean, we'd like to obey for our parents because we're young and we're very small. But when you start going to school, it's like a training ground for being obeyed. The bell goes, doesn't it? Oh, there we are. We better filter in. They all filter in one at a time. No running. No running in the corridor. Lining up, all of that business. Then you filter into the classroom and you all have a certain desk. Sit there. That's it. Shut up. Don't talk. Right, here we go. Open the book. You all open the book. You've got to write down from whatever it is the teacher tells you. We're all learning this business about obeying the rules. You know, as I say, the bell goes and we go, oh, that's the beginning of the class. The bell goes, that's the end of the class. And we're starting to get this sort of obedience thing in which then somewhere in all of that time, we're actually trying to get a bit of an education and learn about the world. But mostly we're being told what to do, and we're growing up to be obedient servants, aren't we? So that when you enter the workplace, you can do exactly the same. You turn up at 9 o'clock, and in some places, you know, in the old days, I don't know if they still do this, you had to clock in, you know, clock in before 9 o'clock, click, clock, clock in there, clock out there, do this work, and then you come home. And it's all like signals of making people, forcing people into a pattern so that then you could take your money. And people were not really doing this for themselves. They were having to sort of follow these very rigid routines, which is quite bizarre. And yet when I think about, you know, common law, the natural law, God's law, if you like, and the constitution of life, something that makes a lot of sense, you know, the business about doing no harm, one of the things that they often say to you is that no man is above the law. And I think to myself, is that really true? Because if no man is above the law, how come some men seem to think they are above the law and tell you what to do? You know, they might dress up in some sort of uniform and parade up and down the street or patrol around in cars with blue flashing lights. And somehow they can say, stop. I've got the power to stop you. Well, why have you got the power to stop me? Why have I not got the power to stop you? We are all human, are we not? We're all the same. I've got the same little dangly bits that you've got, and you may have got a little bit more hair than me, but oh no, hang on a minute, you've got a uniform and a whistle and a truncheon, and suddenly you've got the power to stop me, which is very strange, isn't it, that we let people take control of our lives. I mean, in the pandemic, do you remember the pandemic, that time when the government stood there through the power of television and said to everybody, you've got to stay inside, you're not allowed outside, you can't go for a walk, you mustn't have a cup of coffee, you mustn't sit down, you've got to keep moving. Do you remember those days when you were told you mustn't do this and you mustn't do that, and you thought, blimey, and yet incredibly, whole nations, in fact the whole planet went, oh my giddy aunt, we're all going to have to do the same. And they all obeyed. They all, because they were put into fear. There is this terrible virulent virus, it's coming around, it's horrible, nasty and ugly, and it's going to get you. If you go outside, not only will you get it, you will pass it over to everybody else, so you must obey. And I just thought, this is very strange. And yet I know that people will obey. Years ago, when I used to be in the entertainment business, not this sort of entertainment, in the entertainment where you turned up at an event, corporate events and family fun days and things like that, I used to do comedy characters. And one of the character I used to do was these pretend or comedy bouncers. We'd get employed at a corporate party, and we would, my mate Nigel and I, because we were both bald, we'd stand there in our sort of black suits. We'd all stand there all like this with a clipboard and all of this. And as people arrived at a party, at a company party, they'd all be glammed up and all that, ready to go and enjoy themselves. And we'd be standing by the doors, and we'd be, and it might be just that everybody knew the party was on. There was no invitation, nothing like that. And we would be going, tickets, please. Can I see your tickets, please? Tickets. And people are going, what? Tickets? He said, yes, you can't come in without me seeing your ticket. I'm sorry, that's the way it is. Or we'd be looking down on our clipboard and saying, what's your name? And they'd be going, oh, it's Mrs. Jones, or whatever the name was, you know. It's Hilda Norris. Okay, Hilda Norris. Let's have oh, I'm sorry, your name's not on the list. And they go, what? But I work for the company. No, your name's not on the list. I'm sorry, love, you can't come in. He said, but I'll have to talk to my manager, my line manager. I mean, I've seen Sylvia, she's in there. She can vouch for me. Nope, sorry, your name's not on the list. You'll have to wait. I'll make a phone call. Hang on a minute. We've got a Mrs. Rachel Norris here. Are we allowed to? Sorry, love, you'll have to wait 5 minutes and we'll get someone down. We were just making this up. We would make it up. Other people, I had this little device which emitted a bleep, and I had a bit of silver dowel on it, painted it, you know, and it would just go like this, and I would say, right, okay, as people were arriving in dribs and drabs, I say, right, okay, do you stand here just before we go in? There's a bit of an alert on at the moment, so what we need is I just need to scan you. And they would go, oh, I see. And they didn't really ask why. They didn't say, what are you talking about? We're coming here to go to the party. You're an idiot. Get out the way. They didn't say that. No, they just said, so I said, can you put your hands up like this, please? And I would just do this comedy scan like this. Some people kind of got the joke, but most people thought we were serious because we just went through the most absurd routines. Can you stand on one leg, please? Oh, okay, right, you can go in. Other ones, there might be a red carpet down. We would just make this up, and we would stand there and say, as people were arriving, they would walk on the red carpet, you know, having photos of themselves and all this. And we would say, can you get off the carpet, please? Can you get off the red carpet? Sorry, you're not allowed on the red carpet. I mean, the red carpet was for them, you know, but we would just say, no, get off the red carpet, please. Can you stand to the sides? And this might be in a very narrow corridor in which there was only, say, I don't know, 6 inches between the edge of the red carpet and the wall. He said, no, you're not allowed on the red carpet. Can you just stay right to the edge of the wall, please? Please don't go on the red carpet. That is reserved. You're not allowed in there. And people would just acquiesce. They would just be so obedient, and it was comic. Eventually, they would get the idea, and they knew that we were taking the mickey. And then, of course, people would group up at the other end of the carpet by the doors where the main party was going on, and be watching as new people would come along and get scanned and told to go on the edge of the carpet or whatever it was. And people would love it, and they would all laugh, and it was all done in a friendly way because they understood just how they had been taken in. But this obedience thing, people just seem to like to be obedient. We've been trained from a very early age not to use critical thinking, not to ask, why the hell would we do this? They would just do it. Now, of course, we're being told on on the 23rd of April, on St. George's Day, we're going to get these bleeps, aren't we? These emergency bleeps that are going to tell us that there's an emergency, and we're going to feel a sense of panic every time they go on. Oh my God, that's the government telling them. And of course, once that starts once, it's going to no doubt happen many, many times, and the government are going to get that little shock of frightening, bit like Schrodinger's cat. Every time something happens, we will obey. They may say, well, okay, we would like you to do this. So again, it's another sort of training mechanism. It's preparing us to be obedient. Oh, look, there's UFOs coming in, or there's another virus, or there's a flood, or there's whatever. It's all that fear-mongering, but making us continue to be obedient just in case they need us to herd us in this way or another. And instead, of course, they're getting rid of all that critical thinking and people. So I've turned mine off. Now, I know not everybody's got a phone that can be turned off, but I've turned off these emergency things because I don't want to be part of it. Thank you very much. I don't want them to tell me. I want to have that critical thinking. I want to say to myself, why? Why are you doing this? One man cannot be above the rule of another man. You know, if no one can be above the law, then why can you tell me what to do? And yet we still do it. So I was encouraged very much when I read this article about these people who didn't bother to pay their fines and just said, you know what, no, we're going to go on. We're going to do our life the way we've always done our life, and you're not just going to fine us. These unjust laws, they're not for us. And I was very encouraged like that. And I thought with these 15-minute cities, this net zero, these low traffic neighbourhoods, all this sort of stuff, I thought, why, if the councillors are putting these, or if the government is shoving these things up our throats and these central bank digital currencies, why are we paying their wages? Why are we paying for it? Why are we building the prison? We're just continually financing all of this stuff and moaning about it and going, oh dear, isn't it terrible? 15-minute cities, it's terrible. Meanwhile, when the bills come in or when the fines come in, we're just paying them. And you just think, well, actually, maybe a bit of civil disobedience would send a message. You need a few people to test the system out and go, do you know what? I'm just going to bother. I'm just not going to bother. And other people will go, do you know what? I'm not going to bother either. I'm not going to pay this tax or this bill or that bill. I'm not going to bother. And as more and more people do that, what a message that sends to the government, and says, look, these rules, these regulations, these stupid, unmoral rules which are unjust and not right, we're not putting up with it. We're not going to do it. You can put them down as much as you like. You can tell us, keep off the grass as much as you like, but sod it, we're going to go on the grass. What are you going to do? After all, a dictator without any followers is merely a clown, and in many ways that's what it is. So I take my hat off to those people who are just saying, enough is enough, this is stupid, we're using critical thinking, we're using common sense, we're not going to bother with any of this nonsense that you're thrusting down to us. We do not necessarily have to obey.